Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start the meeting, if that's okay. I want to start by welcoming everyone. Thank you very much for coming here. I'd like to also take this opportunity to remind everyone I expect us all to treat each other with respect and accord the same respect to officers. Please remember that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Can I first start with apologies for absence? I have received apologies from Billy Christie, and thank you very much, Lakshmi Atawar, for acting as a substitute. Are there any more apologies? Great, let's get going then. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have any declarations they'd like to make? Nope, fantastic. Yes.
May I ask, May I ask, since you made the reference to mutual and appropriate respect, is there some reason for that? Because I don't recall it being mentioned in the past. If there is, if something has happened, I'd be interested to know. And if it's just a general new policy, we're going to do that. Thank you for saying it.
I think we should. We have been saying it at the start of most meetings. So
I think I used to say it.
yeah. It's a routine announcement. Sorry, Councillor Mercer. Right. For the next item of business, minutes of the previous meeting. Can I check that if the panel agrees this is a true and accurate record? Fantastic. Right, so let's get cracking. The first item on our agenda tonight is the budget and business planning round. I'd like to ask the cabinet members, Councillor Stephen Allen Bridges, to open this item of business and just to highlight any issues that you want to bring our attention to.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for inviting me to this meeting, and also thank my cabinet members for being here as well to join us and contribute where applicable. I'd also like to thank Assad and the officers for being here tonight. Now, this budget is round one of scrutiny. We do 2 rounds of scrutiny of our budget here in the London Borough of Merton. This is round one, is dedicated to supporting and enabling delivery of Merton's vision of our 3 strategic priorities. Everything we do is with that in mind, and that is nurturing civic pride in the London Borough of Merton, building a sustainable future for our residents, and creating a borough of sport. I know Caroline is very hard working on this issue in particular. Now, we all know we face a challenging environment. There are higher expectations of our residents, from our residents and our customers, growing demand for our services, especially services like temporary accommodation. I'm pleased that Jeremy Smalley is here, who's working hard on that particular issue. And we are constrained in terms of local government finance, but we will persevere with providing a service that adheres to Merton's values of moving forward with pace, looking after people and delivering on their expectations. And just finally from me, I would like to thank the officers who engaged in the qualities assessments and the impacts there. Very important. They're all there for you because it is crucially important that we do all we can to mitigate and to look after people from all walks of life, especially those with those equalities issues that we want to address in everything that we do. So that's it from me. A very general statement. Happy to come in and out as we go through any questions and comments. Thank you.
Anything you'd like to add, Assad?
Thank you, Chair. And just to add to what Councillor Allen Bridges has outlined. So yes, this is round one of 2 rounds of scrutiny that we have. This is actually the first of 4 sessions that we have covering all the departments. And obviously we're here today focusing on environment, civic pride and climate, and housing and sustainable development. So I just want to draw your attention to some of the numbers you're looking at as part of your pack. But first of all, just to reiterate the pressures that do persist, and this is not just here in Merton. This is replicated across London in councils up and down the country as well. So the pressures in social care are well highlighted, and we're not immune for them, especially in children's social care. Adults, although they are managing the pressures well, they are managing them in a torrent of significant uplifts in costs and demand. Temporary accommodation, particularly for this panel, is really relevant, and it's acute. We are still one of the lowest in London, but that's no comfort given the number of families we are supporting throughout the borough. And then we have the issues around the DSG that are still persisting. So one thing I am pleased is we are looking at just over £6 million worth of savings in this round. That is by far more than any other round that we've had in recent years, and that is really positive in that these don't feel like very significant and deep swinging cuts. These are savings that have been put forward that are sustainable and do not put at risk delivery of service across all departments. So we have put forward £6 million for next year, rising to £7 million by the end of the MTFS period. That does impact the gap. That brings it down to around £5.5 million further to find. So we are working on additional rounds of savings to come forward in January, when we'll have the same set of meetings coming back then. You'll see in the Cabinet report that we are building in further pressures for temporary accommodation and for children's social care, given the work that Jeremy and his team and Councillor Judge leading on that around investments in accommodation and to manage some of the high cost placements that we have, so we can look after the families who need our support in a more affordable and financially sustainable way, but that will take time. So we are looking for further savings. However, there's a number of fairly big events that will happen before then that will determine how much further money we have to find. So there's a policy statement going to be released this Thursday, which will give us more of a heads up around how much money we have to find as part of the settlement. So that'll be a big clue in terms of what's coming forward. You've probably seen some press around how deprivation is going to be remodelled. One of the things we fed back on as part of our consultation and jumped on the back of London Council's representations to government around the fair funding review was the impact of housing costs on deprivation, and we felt that wasn't adequately covered. There seems to be movement on that one, but until we see what is proposed, we won't set that out yet. But that will be the big update next, and then obviously the national budget in just over a week's time will give us a heads up in terms of how much money is allocated to the department that local government sits under. But the real acid test for us is, as is every year, the settlement, which will come just before Christmas, which means my finance team will have a quick bite of the turkey and then straight back at it with the calculators and the spreadsheets and understanding what that means for Merton. The one positive thing, something we've not had for many years, is we will be returning to a 3-year settlement. So that will be really positive in terms of strategic planning for a local authority. It is very difficult to plan for 1 year with a real uncertainty on future years. So we look forward to the ability to set plans with a firmer footing over a number of years. We'll be back in January with an update in terms of the Cabinet report, what the settlement means, and where we are in terms of balancing our budget for next year and seeing what the gap is for future years. So I very briefly mentioned the fair funding review. I won't go into detail. There's lots of detail in the October Cabinet report in terms of what fair funding means, what the consultation outlined, and what our response was. But essentially, just to very briefly highlight, that will determine local authority funding allocations, and it's looking at consolidating lots of funding pots into more manageable ones, and it will be looking at measuring demand for services and cost of delivery differently as it's currently done. This will match what they think is the locally available resources, and it'll also look at the future of business rates. So we have as a council written to government as part of our consultation responses around some of the concerns we had about what they've consulted on. As I say, particularly around deprivation, it is the single biggest cost for residents of Merton and residents of London, and one thing we are concerned about is that does disadvantage boroughs like Merton. So we're hoping to see a change in that next week, and also changes to the children's service formula and area cost adjustments, which also can negatively affect London. So we've responded, and that is in the report. And we also note the impact on funding as it is set out in the report will happen over 3 years. It will be staggered over 3 years, but as I say, until we get a settlement, we won't know what that looks like. But yes, we need to continue to plan for that and keep our pencil sharp in terms of planning for what the future looks like and our future resources. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you very much, both Azad and Councillor Stephen, for that introduction. I'd like to open up the floor to questions, and I'd like, if we can, to try and group the questions thematically. So we're going to go through the report in order. I'm going to start off talking, inviting questions for, in general, about the MTFS report before moving on to the section Housing and Sustainable Development and ending with Environment, Civic Pride and Climate. So can I ask, are there any questions about the MTFS report? I see Councillor Sławek-Szczepanski and Councillor Anthony Fairclough afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two. Item 5.1, it's saying MTFS 2026-39. Is that a typo? To be 30? Yes, 5.1. MTFS 2026 to 39.
Yes.
Okay. No worries. And my initial question is: homelessness continues to be one of the biggest pressures on the budget. What are we doing to mitigate that pressure in Merton?
Perhaps it's one for Jeremy to go in detail. I will sort of lead into it in that you'll see in terms of recent reports and investment in capital, there is a significant effort to really get housing going in this borough, not just oh, sorry, Councillor as well. So yeah, there is a significant effort in terms of prioritising our resources, but I will let Councillor Judge first. Yeah.
Hello, are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Councillor Judge.
Sorry, I wasn't inviting. I wasn't thinking you wanted me to speak, but I will speak if you wish me to.
Yes, I think Councillor Szczepanski was pointing out to the pressures that homelessness has on the budget, and whether what efforts have been done to try and mitigate some of the cost pressures on that.
Well, the council's been engaging in several work streams. They are as follows. There are 6 main work streams, and they encompass about 60 actions. And they are in respect of housing benefits, payments, housing needs and a transformation of that area of work, demand management, private supply, temporary accommodation supply, and social supply. As I say, there are about 60 separate actions that are encompassed here. I would say the most important in the longer term is social supply. It is the degree to which we as a council can acquire our own housing. And I anticipate that in the next weeks and months, we will demonstrate that we are acquiring significant housing, not least beginning with our own housing programme of 75 homes that we're building on 3 sites, with contracts being let by the end of this month. But there is no magic bullet to this situation. It is a very difficult housing situation across London, we're probably, in numerical terms, in a better position than practically all other boroughs. Nonetheless, it is affecting us badly in terms of the impact on residents, but also the impact on our finances. And we have to take a comprehensive program of action to address it. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you very much. Does Jeremy, do you want to come in on that at all?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure it's not lost on anybody the complexity of the housing issue that Councillor Judge has outlined. But we are aware that not only is it a personal tragedy for those affected by homelessness, it is having a significant cost pressure on the council. And as Councillor Judge has said, we are trying 60 odd different lines of inquiry to try and address this pressure. The 6 key topics that Councillor Judge outlined there, and then there's a number of different activities under each of those which we're pursuing. The first and pressing thing is to impact on cost, and we're confident that we will be able to have a positive impact on reducing cost. But as Councillor Judge has quite rightly outlined, the longer term issue needs to be on supply, because it's supply that we need desperately to tackle the huge increase in demand. And just by way of a sort of summary, the demand has increased fourfold in the last 3 years, and the cost has as well, and hence why we're in the situation that we are. But I wish to assure the panel we do have a plan in place to try and address it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fairclough, I think I promised you the next question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the councillors and the officers for this report. One of the things that we are supposed to do is to scrutinise how well the budget matches the political priorities of the administration. So I wondered if I could ask the 3 substantive cabinet members who are here if they could each identify one aspect of the budget that they think meets their particular priorities.
Which cabinet members would like to go first? Councillor Cooper-Marbella.
Which aspect of the budget meets my priority? Well, as you know, the Borough of Sport is new, and we're not given any budget per se. The leader made it very clear that he wants sport to be in the DNA of everything that we do, and we need to work in partnership with others, and not just organizations within Merton, but outside Merton and within the council. And so we work closely with other departments. So, for example, when it comes to what example can I give? So, for example, when it comes to parks and open spaces, we work with them and partner with them so that whatever they are doing, we can have an input in that and provide sporting activities for our residents. When it comes to adult social care and health, one of their main aim is to make sure that older people are active. That's just one part of what they do, whereby for us as a Borough of Sport, that's the main thing that we do. And we want to make sure that everyone is active. So we look to them when it comes to providing some sort of funding to help us, to be able to make people active. But don't also forget that as a Borough of Sport, we have managed to leverage millions into this borough to provide sport and physical activities. So we are not just looking to the council to give us money, but we are trying to make sure that we're leveraging funding from outside to make sure that we are keeping people active and making sure that we achieve our ambition. Thank you.
Councillor Judge, can I ask can I bring you into this question as well, please?
Well, I think the most important thing for our housing programme is that we have an active capital support from our budget in the long term to build and to acquire housing. An example would be the budget we've recently set up, which is effectively a £20 million budget to acquire social housing, mainly for temporary accommodation. 12 million of that is coming from Merton. About 7.5 is coming from government, but it is vital that given that we are now entering the field of housing and housing needs and concerns, that we as a council support those long-term programmes. And I'm very grateful that colleagues and officers have done so.
And Councillor Neveson.
Sure. No, so very happy to talk about this. I mean, it's a bit hard to go into much detail because, as you'll see in the report, there's not a huge amount from my area to talk about. We have a main thing is having a CPI plus 1% rise across some of the charges that we're looking at across the council. But I know from speaking to officers, from speaking to the leader, that our main goal with this budget is making sure that Merton remains or keeps the fantastic reputation it has, both on climate change, on the green issues we're talking about. You know, as I'm sure everyone saw, we have one of the best records in the country when it comes to climate change, and we want to keep that, and also ensuring that we remain our in-house street service, cleaning service, goes from strength to strength over the next year. So that's the key considerations that we'll be having when we come, especially to the next round of the budget, and looking at how we can make further improve the council services that we already have.
Thank you very much. I will open next round of questions. I see Councillor Saida. Oh, can I bring in? Okay, Councillor Brenda Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. This question is actually to the management of finance. I've heard and I've listened to what you've said, and I understand most of what it is, and that the money isn't coming in. But how confident are you that we'll be able to bridge the gap for next year?
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. It is challenging, and I make no apologies for outlining the challenges that we have as a management team and as a cabinet. The focus on this has been there from early summer to now, to set a budget which is essentially balanced and have saving proposals that are deliverable. I mean, you know, I again don't want to take comfort in other people's sort of misery, but you know, some of the issues that we are facing are multiplied tenfold, and I have confidence in terms of the departments that they are going to bring forward additional resources that will manage to balance the gap. I also think on the positive noises coming out of central government, I think there will be a relook at the fair funding review, which will also help us, and that will get us over the line for next year. The important thing really is we take that challenge of a 3-year settlement, and given all the issues we have, especially affecting this panel, we deliver that MTFS in a strategically managed way, which the settlement will give us. But I'm confident we are up for the challenge of setting a budget, and we will have an update in January outlining that.
Next round, Councillor Saida, and then Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. So in reference to like the housing sustainable development, so I was looking at
we can go back to that. We're still on MTFS, if that's okay, Councillor Saida. If you have any questions on MTFS, that's okay. Apologies. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. So question primarily directed at Assad. Earlier on, Councillor Alambresis was mentioning the importance of what we're doing for taking care of the residents of Merton. But I think a very important part that we need to remember, and is in the assumptions, is the staff that work for Merton. I'm thinking that without them motivated, without retaining the people we want to retain and attracting the people we want to attract, we've got fundamental problems actually doing the jobs that we need to do as a council. Now, in 2022, when the inflation rate was 9, 10, 11%, in my company, in order to do those sort of things with my team, I increased their salaries by 9% to be able to protect them against the hardships that they were facing with the increased cost of living. As far as I recall, we as a council gave 4% to our employees at that time. And I don't think that we have closed the gap since. Indeed, as far as I can see, with inflation stated in the report to be at 3.8%, we've put an indication of a 3% increase so that they fall further behind the cost of living when they have already fallen behind in the past. Now, I appreciate that this is a real management challenge. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I think we need to think very hard about taking care of our staff. My suggestion to you, to Cabinet, is that we try at least to protect them with an inflation level increase, and that we should, if we're saying inflation is 3.8, we should at least be putting something closer to 3.8 in as our estimate of our cost for the coming year.
Please go ahead, Nathan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. I do agree it is absolutely vital as an organisation, given all the challenges that we face and all the hard work our staff put in. They are passionate for us. They live in the borough, a lot of them, and they work endlessly and tirelessly for the needs of the borough. So I do agree with the member there around that point. I will clarify, we don't have local negotiations on pay. They are part of a national bargaining that is involves all the unions, and we are a member of that. So we do take part in that. The pay rates over that period have been differential, so there have been innovative ways of protecting those at the bottom of the scale. So an average rate doesn't quite tell the entire story, because the lower end of the people who are on lower salaries have been getting a higher uplift during that period compared to the upper end. So I do take the point about the importance of protecting our staff. In terms of the assumptions, again, given the negotiations are out of our hands as an individual borough, one thing we have to be very careful of is forecasting an increase in inflation or pay rates, and then it turns out to be lower, because if we forecast too high, those savings have to come out of the frontline services. So we have to deliver a balanced budget, and we have to work to cut our cloth accordingly, essentially. So we put in estimates based on the current rates. Inflation rates are very volatile, and what is forecast now does change on a monthly basis. We will take a final review when we set the budget in February, and if we have to amend it, we will amend it. We have done as part of this report, so the prevailing forecast was lower and we've increased it. We always keep an eye on it, and when we do set the budget in February, we will monitor it. We do have safeguards for where inflation is higher and where pay rates are higher. We have excess inflation provisions and other things, but very, very important to make that distinction. We don't negotiate locally, and the higher our assumptions, and if it turns out to be lower, that's unnecessary reductions in expenditure for services that we have to make. So it's a very fine balance that we have to take. And as I say, these are early assumptions, and these will be refined until we take the final report in February.
So, Alan Bruce.
I thank Councillor Mercer for his intervention on behalf of our staff. It is always encouraging to hear councillors from all parties expressing support for officers, for staff, for residents, and we need to park that as well. But if Councillor Billy Hayes was here, he would remind us that we are a London living wage local authority, and as Assad hinted at, in terms of averaging, in terms of those on the lower scale, we're doing all we can. But I just want to reassure Councillor Mercer that wherever possible, within national constraints, we will seek to look after our staff. And we're also looking after them in terms of salary sacrifice, in terms of time off, in terms of paternity, maternity leave. We're doing all we can each time we can to improve their working conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions on the MTFS strategy in general? No. Then I'd like to move on to housing and sustainable development. Do we have questions on housing and sustainable development? Sorry, I go straight to you because I did cut you off. Sorry, Councillor Seether.
I do apologise for jumping the gun, so sorry about that. Right, in regards to Appendix 1, looking at the building control, reduced agency staff. So how is this work proceeding to share this service with neighbouring boroughs?
Jeremy, can you jump in on that?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. It's mainly around the out of hours service and dangerous structures work. So the intention is that we'll further the sort of partnership relationship with other boroughs so that we're able to cover a greater patch when it's our turn, and likewise they on their turn.
So Alan British as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, for the answer from Jeremy. It just gives me an ideal opportunity to just remind ourselves of what a great sharing borough this is. Daniel Defoe talked about share and share alike in Robinson Crusoe. I think it's important to share. So we share audit services with other boroughs. We share our fraud, our tackling of fraud with other boroughs' work. We share our regulatory services with other boroughs, and we share our pensions with other boroughs. Now, maybe we're leading on it, or another borough is leading on it. For example, pensions administration, I think, is Wandsworth. But the big one that we lead on is the South London Legal Partnership, doing work for four other boroughs, working together. So sharing services is one way forward in these difficult times, and we're looking to share that the building control service with other boroughs as well. It's the way forward. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to, I think that's Councillor Wilson. There we go.
Thank you. Just on the development and building control restructure, so there's a note that the validation will be passed to admin officers. Just want to understand a bit about why the decision's been made and the impact on the validation process. And then a second question on the administration of new affordable housing policy income stream. So this is income coming in from small developments where there's no affordable housing. I guess it feels like a strange framing because you sort of feel like that should be spent on affordable housing activity elsewhere in the borough. Will that be reflected in expenditure, or just again understanding how that's kind of viewed internally?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So on the first one, validation, we were subject to a corporate peer review into the planning service, and one of the things that identified was that we can do more collective registration and validation and preserve planning officers' time to deal with planning applications. So we are working through an improvement plan, which will include how we address both registration and validation and how we're able to resource that so that we improve the service and the time it takes to register and validate, but free up development control officers' time to deal with planning applications. So that's what that's about. In relation to the income stream, it's a proportion of the administration fee for the affordable housing. The receipts generally would go to support the capital programme, the bulk of the receipts.
Questions of Councillor Ottawa? Who else? There was Councillor Fairclough, and then I'll go to Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Chair. At the last year's budget, I think this directorate had 183,000 in savings proposals for this coming the previous year, the year we're currently in. How successful were those savings proposals?
Yeah, they've been successful. So we're about 83% there now as we move into the final quarter. Asad might adjust my figures slightly, but we're on target.
Councillor Holden.
Yeah, thank you. Question on property management. let's say a medium risk. We're going into quite a challenging sort of financial market at the moment. So how likely is it that you're going to achieve this particular target?
It's a good question, thank you. And I'm confident that we'll achieve the target. So we're in a situation where there is some rent reviews and lease renewals that are outstanding, which we're working through. And so I'm confident we'll be able to achieve that amount.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, first of all, I'm really proud to see in Merton we have quite a few new businesses of startup, although we're losing some, but we're still having some new one. What I would like to find out, how are we supporting Merton businesses during this really difficult time?
Councillor Alan British.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is regarding rent reviews and issues like that. It is important that we get the right level of income from rent reviews, but at the same time, as Councillor Joan Henry has hinted, how are we continue to support our businesses? And we support them in a number of ways. The small business rate relief scheme, although coming from on high from government, we nevertheless apply that automatically. Some local authorities, you have to apply for it, and that can be quite bureaucratic. The other business rate scheme is the local discount scheme, supports the attraction of new businesses, as Councillor Henry has hinted, and expanding businesses as well. And in November, we launched Merton's own business energy efficiency support scheme, giving help to businesses to reduce energy costs and carbon emissions. And finally, from me, in terms of supporting small business, and you would expect this from me, I hope, being formally with the Federation of Small Businesses, our brokerage service, Employ Merton, provides help to businesses engaging with residents in employment and linking the two together. So we provide a free recruitment service promoting vacancies and long listing and short listing for small businesses. That can be quite a bureaucratic and quite a red tape issue for them. So yes, we are looking at rent reviews. We owe a duty to the council taxpayer to make sure that rents are appropriate, but at the same time, we continue to support our small businesses. Thank you.
I can be so bold as ask a cheeky question, because one of my pet hobbies is planning application fees. I can see that in section SO3, there's a shortfall because planning application fees are set nationally. And there's a shortfall often between the fees charged and the amount it costs to actually run the planning authority. That's hopefully now changing. I can see here in the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. I was wondering if perhaps someone can give us an update on what progress I hope to see and the difference I might be able to make here in Merton.
Yeah, when the bill becomes an act of parliament, if it remains as it is, we'll be able to do local fee setting. And the importance of that is we can then do full cost recovery. So there are certain things that you will appreciate that the authority funds, like for instance, advice on flooding related to a planning application or highways matters, and they're funded by the service and not covered by the planning application fee. So we will be in a position where we're able to set realistic fees and secure full cost recovery. We've made an allowance for next year, relatively limited, picking up on the point that Councillor made about deliverability and confidence of deliverability. When we're clearer about the passage of the Act, then we'll be able to firm that up.
Very much, fantastic. Are there any more questions on housing and sustainable development? Nope. Great. Then I will move on to our final theme, environment, civic pride and climate. Can I invite any questions? I see Councillor Fairclough first. I'll go with you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I have three related questions, so I'll take your guidance on whether you want me to ask them all at once or whether you want me to ask them separately so other people can have a say.
Considering your specific hand I saw, by all means go ahead and ask all three.
Thank you. It's very, very generous of you, Chair. So my first question then is very similar to my last question. There was £263,000 of savings in this directorate in the last budget, and how successful have we been at making those savings? That's my first question. My second question relates to the income proposal itself, which is to increase discretionary fees and charges by CPI plus 1%. And I wondered, for example, the £550,000 income in the next financial year, what is represented by that 1% and what is represented by CPI, as it were, and basically whether any account is taken of potential change of behaviours. And my last question, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, is to turn to page 80 and the equality impact assessment for this item. It is noted that they are discretionary fees and that there is no particular impact on any protected characteristic. And then there is a series of tick boxes ticked no to the various protected characteristics in the Equality Act, plus also the additional one that we add in, which relates to the financial kind of impact, socioeconomic background. It seems to me that equality impact assessment has rushed to determine that a discretionary paid for service won't impact protected characteristics. And I just wondered if I could be assured that indirect discrimination has been considered as part of this equality impact assessment.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Fairclough. I'm deputising for Caroline Bruce this evening, so I'll take each of those questions in turn. The first one around achievement against current savings. So just looking through the list, we had a summary of 15 separate savings lines that constituted that savings amount. Of those 15, 13 are delivered or on course to be delivered. There's two other ones where there's a slight more challenge, partially achieved at this point, but probably about 90% of achievement, with a bit more work to be undertaken over the next few months. On the income proposal and how that was calculated for the savings, so the amount that's being used is as for ECPC as a department, a significant amount of our budget is income. So we've calculated that amount based on the total kind of income revenue streams that are calculated for the department, and then taken the CPI plus 1 on that. So we're basing that on the current CPI levels, and that's how we've calculated that. With regards to how we apply the how we assess the impact and the equalities impact within those charges. So this is really the first part of the proposal. So this is the kind of baseline figures in terms of what we're working towards. What we will be presenting at Cabinet next month as part of a broader fees and charges review is the detail around each of those lines and what the implications are. As we said, some things are set by national government and can't be amended. Others, there's a bit more flex, and we're doing that work at the moment, particularly around some of those things where we're not achieving full cost recovery. But with the fees and charges paper, which is a collective council proposal in terms of our collective fees and charges, that will outline the individual lines and the implications for residents, and will draw out any additional or new equalities implications that may mean that inequalities impact assessment will require updating as such.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any more questions on this item? Otherwise, I think we have I'll go to Councillor Mercer and then I'll come back for the final question, Councillor Fair.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a general question, and I'm not really scared of sounding like a broken record, because I think it's nice for you all to hear the same record on a regular basis. I'm thinking about the civic pride element we're looking at. I'm looking at the environment element we're looking at, and I'm thinking about the smell when I walk down the side of Morden tube station toilets, lack of. Hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, there's going to be some toilets in Morden tube station. But when I looked through this document, I didn't see, and I'm very happy if someone could point something out to me, but I didn't see any reference to increased funding or any funding relating to toilet provision over the coming year, and I wondered if there might be.
Yeah, can I thank you, Councillor Merson, thank you for your efforts and your work on seeking a solution to the lack of toilet facilities in Morden. You joined me, I started that battle about 15 years ago. And yes, we've all heard the good news that the toilets at Morden Tube Station soon coming back, and that's down to your work, everyone's work, including my colleague, Councillor Eleanor Stringer, the Cabinet Member. I will go back to her with your comments. I know she's working on improving toilet facilities throughout the borough, and I know she will soon be making a beeline to my office, and I'll always consider those requests. So I'll go back to her with your exact question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the final question goes to Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you, Chair, and you'll be pleased it's not a question, but it is in fact a recommendation, if I may.
I think we have closed up this item of business, so yep, now would be the time for it.
Thank you. So we heard that there's currently very limited detail on this item, this particular revenue increase, and given the cost of living crisis, the very, very limited information in the equality impact assessment, I'd like to propose, especially in the light of the information that an additional paper with more detail is coming to Cabinet, I'd like to propose that more information is in fact provided on this item to Scrutiny, particularly the services impacted, including a further review of the EIA. So rather than sign it off tonight, I'd like us to basically wait for the Cabinet paper with the more detail that has been spoken about, and that this item comes back when there is more detail to the next round of scrutiny.
Councillor Alan Brittis wants to speak to this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there needs to be a recommendation on this. There will be more information. Cabinet is looking at this, and also, of course, it'll come round again in the second round of scrutiny, and that's the beauty of having 2 rounds of scrutiny. So there's no need for a recommendation. It is in the natural course of events that these things will be fleshed out.
Councillor Fairclough, by all means, please go ahead.
Thank you. With respect, I think the whole point of us agreeing this round of savings now is that we don't come back to them again. It will go to Cabinet, but of course we don't get to scrutinise it unless it comes back to the second round of scrutiny. In any event, I would simply like to put my recommendation, and the correct response, if the administration doesn't want a recommendation, is to vote it down.
Can I just be clear? Can you please point us to remind us which exactly quality impact assessment we're talking about here, so I can bring it up in front of me? Because am I right in thinking you're basically asking we need to see more information before we can make a decision on this? That's basically the question. Can you please provide me the quick page number so I can see it in front of me?
Yes, of course. So the spending recommendation is on page 30, and the quality impact assessment is on page. I think it belongs on 79, but the particular bit that I was talking about was on page 80.
And so your concerns are that is indirect discrimination being captured here? I'm struggling to understand what it is we're trying to recommend here, because we've been told that more information will be coming to Cabinet, and then so all these kind of concerns will be addressed. So I'm not sure what the value of this recommendation is right here, as we have what we need in front of us. This is a report we're voting on. I don't quite follow. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's your prerogative not to follow, and that's absolutely fine. You can vote it down. I think what we have here is a broad brush income proposal with no detail, and a very, very basic equality impact assessment, which really skirts over when there is no detail what the impacts might be. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. I simply think it's the case that rather than let's rush to sign off this particular savings proposal through its scrutiny process now, we make sure that this is back on the agenda next time. That's my recommendation. And that doesn't presuppose us, you know, we might be perfectly satisfied, and that's absolutely fine. But I would just like that ECPC1 is back on the second round of scrutiny, and that's the recommendation that I'm seeking to have us vote on. I appreciate the administration usually tries to talk out proposed recommendations, but nonetheless, I'd like to put it, and I'd like us to vote on it, and you can absolutely vote it down.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Hello, Wilson, for the records. I'll invite a vote on this. Could all members in favour of this recommendation please raise their hand now? Yeah, go ahead.
I beg your pardon. I'm perhaps like you, I'm struggling a little because I wasn't aware of this before it's been raised, obviously now. But you said that we will be able to assess the consideration of this in the next meeting. Have you not? I think Councillor Fairclough is asking that we are able to at least see a reconsideration of this in the next meeting. Is that right?
I'm sure questions that will be able to be put to the cabinet member on this topic at the next meeting. That's my understanding. The cabinet member is agreeing with me, so we'll be able to ask questions on this once the information has been published to cabinet. The cabinet member, Councillor Stephen Allen British, will be here again. He's generously nodding his head and he'll be answering his questions. So I don't quite see the point of this recommendation, as we'll be back here in January anyway, being able to ask these questions. But Councillor Fairclough has put it to a vote, so we're having a vote on it. Councillor Fairclough, do you want to comment further?
Only because you've had a further attempt to say what you don't see. If there's going to be an opportunity to talk about it again, then there's absolutely no problem with it being back on the agenda, is there? In which case, you know, why wouldn't we pass this recommendation, and we'll all talk about it next time when we have more information.
I don't see the point of this recommendation, which is why I don't see the point in passing it. But we've started the vote, so let's carry on with the vote. Can all councillors in favour of this recommendation please raise their hand? Great. That's fine. All members voting against this recommendation, please raise your hand now. And any members not voting, please raise their hand. That recommendation does not pass. Okay, I'd like to move on to our next item of business, please. Thank you very much, everyone who's leaving us now, for joining us for that first part of the meeting. We were going to talk about antisocial behaviour, but following advice from the monitoring officer, this report will now come to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So the next item of business is the action log. So antisocial behaviour, this report will be scrutinised at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee next week, following an intervention from the monitoring officer.
What's the intervention?
That it is not within the remit of sustainable communities, and it is better sitting within the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Same report will go to that committee, will it?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. Slightly frustrating, obviously, for members who've spent time and sort of analysing the report and had questions prepared. Just want that noted, please. Also, I don't know. No one's informed us.
This was Rosie. Do you want to help me out here?
Sorry, Councillor, if I may, the decision was only taken this morning, I'm afraid.
I'd like to move on to the next item of business on this point then. The action log. We need to review the outstanding actions and responses provided. I think one of the actions in the action log is the draft letters to the housing associations. I think that the action log here is a bit out of date because they have been sent out and we've received replies now, which we're going to hopefully see soon. And also some good news about our recommendation for creating a formal housing ambassador scheme that's going to cabinet officially on the 24th of November, and it's been published. And what I can see in the published cabinet documents, it looks like Clarion have accepted the recommendation and will be rolling out a version of that scheme. So great for us who've been pushing this on the panel. It shows the power of scrutiny. Are there any other questions on the action log? Councillor Wilson.
Question on the parks and open spaces strategy. It says the project's been paused while the service retenders a grounds maintenance service, which should award in January 26 and mobilise for commencement in November. I was just surprised that we won't be seeing anything more then before it's awarded in January in this committee. So I just wanted to understand why that was.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. I mean, in terms of the contract award, when we put through the preferred mechanism for the procurement that went to cabinet probably about May, I think it's about June of this year, the recommendation was that the award would be on delegative powers to the Executive Director for Environment, Civic Pride and Climate in consultation with the cabinet member for that department, which is quite common for procurement processes around awarding of contracts of that nature. This specific action around the strategy is a bit separate to that, because this is obviously about developing the green spaces strategy, which is still our intent to complete, but we didn't feel that it was appropriate to progress that work when we don't have the contractor on board in terms of knowing exactly what our investment and our proposals and our strategies will be for what will be potentially the next 14 years. So the intent is that once the award's done, once the mobilisation is complete, that we will revisit this and come back to the strategy.
Councillor Wilson, please go again.
It's a separate question for you as well, Anthony. On the tree strategy phase 2, so there's going to be a tender. I just wondered, is that to write the strategy? What's that tender for exactly in relation to that item?
Yes, that is to procure specialist support to deliver and to write and implement the strategy. Yeah, that's correct.
Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask about the item on page 201, waste and recycling. The Cabinet member kindly outlined at our last meeting around an approach to the issue of FPNs. I just wanted to check that the response there is not an unpicking of that softer approach or more understanding approach that he talked about at the last meeting.
No, it's not. I know there was issues with some of the how the fines were issued, some of the processes before. We stopped that process. We spoke to Kingdom about that, and I think the issue, at least I haven't heard any major issues with that alleviation since. And so we're still taking that that same approach with that as we are now, and also making sure that those who are genuinely fly tipping are being held to the full account as well.
More questions on the action log? Councillor Braithwaite.
Sorry, about the walking and cycling. It's amber but I understand the report has been produced, but it's saying this is being recommissioned. So is that an error, or what's the situation with the walking and cycling strategy?
Councillor, my understanding is that that was a reference to a previous version of the walking and cycling strategy. There is actually, as you know, a current version that has been revised and will be going to Cabinet early in the new year. So this does need to be updated in terms of the commentary there. Thank you.
Any further questions on the action log? Then I close that item of business. And then our next part is performance monitoring. So we have reports covering environment, civic pride, climate and housing sustainability Q2, July, September. Anthony Hopkins is head of library adult education heritage. Are there any areas you'd like to highlight in the report? We can take the report as read, but anything you'd like to highlight?
Nothing in particular to highlight, Chair. Just open the floor for questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any questions on this item of business? Councillor Wallason.
CLP 111 SP 497, I think, is on the ASB cases acknowledged within service timescales. Are there any other measures in terms of the ASB services we offer, or is that the sole one that exists? I'm sorry, I don't know what page that's on. I'm just going to do my minutes.
I think it's page 210 of the PDF.
I guess the reason behind my question is it says cases acknowledged, but obviously, you know, an auto response or something quite simple can be a case acknowledged. I think residents are kind of more concerned about how quickly cases can be addressed. So if that is the sole measure, then yeah, I guess it would just be, do we not need something a bit more robust, essentially?
Sure, thank you for that. I mean, it's the sole measure in terms of what we have within this performance report, but we don't have a Safe for Merton colleagues here tonight, but we can go back to the team and make an inquiry about that and come back and feedback to the panel.
Okay, Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you. On page 206, I wondered if you could give us any more detail about the integration issues between Fix My Street and Alloy that are rendering some of the street cleaning measurements unreliable.
I can take the question.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Fairclough, for that question. I was hoping you were going to ask that actually, because yes, we have had over the course of September quite significant IT issues around the integration between Fix My Street and Alloy. Essentially, they're two different pieces of software, and there's an API in between them that connects them together. And what happened is that failed to function for a couple of weeks, and it took us a while to notice why we didn't have the usual number of Fix My Street inquiries, and as a result of that, it took us a couple of weeks to bring them all up to date and to make sure that we'd addressed everything that our residents had brought to our attention. At the point of submitting this information, we still weren't sure if we'd had caught everything, and also we wanted to verify all of the data, which is why we didn't submit the information for the second quarter. However, I can assure you that the issue has now been fully resolved. The software has been tested time and time again, and we will be reporting as normal for Q3 for the next meeting of this panel. Thank you.
Are there any more questions on performance monitoring? Then I will move on to contract performance. This report covers environment, civic pride, climate key contract performance Q2, 25 to 26. Yes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mercer, I didn't see you there.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. I'm quiet and retiring in the corner. I just have. I apologise because loads of people in this room probably know the answer already. But when I was looking through it, there are a number of measures which didn't have any measure, and my thought on that was obviously this is some great piece of information that we've asked for, which we're not getting yet. But it would be nice to know when we might be getting that. And it doesn't seem to be on every line. This information is going to be available by X time or Y time, but perhaps I'm reading it wrongly. Anyone help me on that?
mean, from what I see, some of the reports, some of the data that's been missing, we've just understood why the data is missing, and some of the other data are annual measures, and I think it says in the side that they're annual measures. So we're not yet in a position to report them. We will get them when the annual measure is correct. But please, someone correct me if my understanding is incorrect.
We have some that say new, for example. Yes. But there's no statement when we're going to have any numbers there, or as I say.
So can you give us an example? So I'm trying to find what you're looking at.
147, 147, 148, 149, CRP 147 on page 212.
Would you like me to come in on that, Chair?
Yes,
the,
please.
The borough sport related, Chris. So yes, they are new measures. So they will be in by end of financial year. So probably they'll be end of March figures. So as of kind of April next year, those figures will be presented. Obviously, as it's new, that will be kind of like the baseline year, and then obviously we'll be able to fit, obviously from then onwards we'll be able to measure the impact more on an ongoing basis.
So where there's a gap and no date at the moment, we should assume it's all running for the next financial year.
That's correct. Yes. So the data is being collected this year. So you'll have the data this year, but you won't see it until the new financial year.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we're now going to move to contract performance. I want to see Andrew Kaufman, Leisure and Green Spaces Manager. Are there any areas you'd like? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson, I can't see you there. Oh, I was going for performance monitoring in general. So that's so. Yes, please go ahead.
So there's CRP 096, which is new homes. What does that include, Jeremy? That's not just council homes built, is it? And then, sorry, just one other question, which is CRP 061, which is about temporary accommodation. Maybe this is a bit harder one for you to answer, but it says it's one of the council's top 3 priorities, and I just wondered what the other 2 were.
Yeah, okay. So on the new homes, you're right, it's new homes generally. So it's not council new homes, it's just generally new homes that are built by anyone. And we have to do an authority monitoring report every year. So that's an annual. So that picks up Councillor Mercer's question about why that's greyed out. And that's not financial year, that's calendar year. So you will get a report on that in January. And then, sorry, your second question was related to
CRP 061, which is on temporary accommodation. It just says it's one of the council's top 3 priorities. I wondered what the other 2 were. Wasn't sure if they were in the housing area or if that was related to something else.
Yeah, I think there's some other things as well related to the delivery unit, which has some priorities, including child poverty and borough cleanliness and safer streets.
Okay, so now if those are questions on the performance monitoring, I'd like to open up the floor now to questions on contract performance. Do we have any questions on this part of our report pack? I take that as we are satisfied with the report. Fantastic. And then the final item of business we have is a work program. Are there any specific questions or points of interest the panel would like the report to be framed around, or any specific data or trends we'd like to be included? Please go ahead, Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you, Chair. And I suppose this is more of a question, really. We had talked as a panel about the valuable feedback we might provide on the possibility of Merton opening a housing revenue account. Now, that was withdrawn from the agenda of the last meeting and has now cropped up on the cabinet agenda and doesn't look like it's going to come to us at all. And I just wanted to flag that perhaps seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity, given there was the suggestion that we could input valuably into that across the board, not just the administration, but also to confirm whether whether that will still come to this panel. I expect the answer is no.
My understanding is that it's not going to come back to the panel now. That at least not in pre-decision scrutiny form. But I'm not sure if Jeremy wants to shed any further light on this. So what I mean to say is it won't be a pre-decision scrutiny agenda item. It's going to be a post-decision scrutiny item. That's, sorry for misspeaking. That's my understanding. But yes, it can't be pre-decision scrutiny. Go on, Jeremy, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I understand the intention behind the question. I think it is really valuable to get the panel to look at the detail. I think, as you'll appreciate, the principle of the decision is being asked of Cabinet, and then there's quite a piece of work to do in terms of establishing an HRA, and some of that is constitutional, some of that is financial, some of it is to do with a landlord role, and so I think it will be helpful for us to start to air that debate here in January. Yeah, I'm happy to take that away and prepare a report along those lines.
Councillor Holden.
Yeah, thank you. For the January meeting, we've got the housing associations. Have you lined up which ones are coming? Because I would like to politely ask if we can have Sutton Housing, run by London Borough of Sutton. They have properties in Merton and they've been pretty awful, and one or two sites in my ward.
Great. If the panel agrees, I'm more than happy to invite Sutton Housing in as well. We have some people already confirmed, don't we? But yeah, so this will be an item of business, and yeah, no issue with that at all. Councillor Wilson.
I presume Clarion are coming, are they? Yeah, they are. I know that previous years we've struggled to do year-on-year comparisons because they always seem to present slightly different reports. So I wondered if there's just an effort to look at what we had last year and just making sure we get a bit of consistency around what they're reporting on, so it doesn't feel completely new every year.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I'm sure it'll certainly be put to them before they come here in January. We can ask, yes. Are there any more questions on the work programme? Well, fantastic. Then I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a lovely evening.